All right, we're fresh off part one of our drawing of the mystery icon, Mr. Walt Disney, and we're now in segment two. I'm not going to make a drawing this time, but I'd like to point out some features of various drawings of Walt. Let's see what changes. But first, a question for all of us. What did God mean when he meant you? And question two, are you what he meant you to be? Well, question one, what did he mean when he meant you? That's a lifelong process, isn't it? To figure out who we are, what we want to be, and how we want to maximize our presence here in this life. But you see, the forces of darkness are working against us. Sin, darkness, the flesh, whatever you want to call it. So question two, are you what he meant you to be? Well, that answer is kind of easy. It's no, because we're in a battle. We're in a minefield, and we're in a struggle against the forces of the flesh that work against us and within our hearts that come out. We'd all like to be restored, wouldn't we? Restoration is a big thing. We all crave mint condition, do we not? I went and saw some cars that a guy had, millions of dollars in a barn of restored automobiles. 1957 Chevy Bel Air and a 1965 Ford Mustang, and the leather and the dashboard and the chrome and the paint job, everything was scratch free. It was mint condition. We crave that, don't we? That's really what a photograph shows, is that mint condition I'm talking about. I mean, really, this is Walt in his youthful exuberance, his young self with Mickey Mouse. But what we don't see is the weightier underworld of matters that plague us, that plagued Walt, that made him a lifelong chain smoker. The betrayals of his animators that even led him to this point, to get Mickey Mouse. The fact that later on, after this, some years after this photograph, he and his brother, when they were doing quite well for themselves, bought their parents a nice home in Los Angeles. And yet a tragic occurrence happened there when both parents were found unconscious on the floor. His mother did not make it. His father did. Tragic death of his mother. Okay, so sometimes, a lot of times, pictures belie the struggle and the weightier underneath world that goes on in our lives. I mean, I look at this old family picture that we have. This is taken about mid-90s, about 28 years ago, and yeah, it looks like life has kind of worn me out a little bit too, you know. But what this picture does not show is that that morning, I remember it well, we had a big conflict, a big fight, just before going down to have this photograph taken at a studio. I almost didn't go to have the picture, and it just would have been taken without me, because I think my wife would have gone on down with the kids and taken it. But I made it, and we see the photograph, but we don't see what's really going on underneath, do we? So we all crave this restorative process. There's a Psalm 71:20 and many, many other verses in the Bible that talk about restoration. Psalm 71:20 talks about, we've seen many troubles, many hard and bitter troubles, and yet you, O Lord, restore my life again. Anyway, let's look at some of these drawings we have of Walt's, starting with this one here. What feature have I changed that makes it no longer Walt, or quite different? Well, I see here that the eyebrows, we've changed and adjusted those. Walt has long, thick brows, and these are not long, thick brows. He looks more like an Asian, more like Asian features here. That's the only thing I changed. Now the nose, we probably could have had a little more nose if we kept that. Like that. All right, so next drawing, I've got, no, I don't think this is Walt, and that's because the chin has just been changed way too much. We have this jutting chin. He almost looks like a science horror fiction character, and kind of scary. And that's not really the Walt Disney that we know, just because the chin changed. Everything else is the same, though. Here's a general, this thing is sliding here, general drawing of Walt. I think it's just some things missing. I think the chin is really too big and square on this particular drawing of Walt. Next we have the eyes are different. Everything else is the same, but you see these are not Walt's eyes. They're too big. And we have to be careful about the proportions and the relativity in features as they relate to the rest of the face. And so, is it Walt or not? Well, I'm afraid that without the pencil mustache, it just isn't quite the same, is it? Without his mustache. We probably could have darkened these brows more if we'd be a little bit more accurate. Right? No, that's not Walt's nose. He's got a long, what we sometimes call a Roman nose, but not here. It's been curved out, sort of like slopes, and that changes his face, I think, rather drastically. We've changed his hair here. He looks like one of the Beatles now instead of that slick back look that they had in the 20s. So that would definitely change the depiction. You gotta look closely at this one. We've got a lot that's right about this, but that lower lip is too thin. That's what we changed here, was the lower lip. It's too thin. He's got a thicker lower lip, and you would want to catch that in any drawing. Now here I've changed the shape of his entire head only by moving the cheek in a little bit. Instead of being more prominent out here, I've flattened it some, and that seems to change the, you gotta watch out about whole contour, what we call the whole shape. I like to start with the eyebrow, come around about to the height of the other eyebrow, start out that way, then come in with the forehead later, if I do it that way. But he needs a little bit more of a wider head there, especially with the cheek. Same thing here, we've got the jawline has been brought in tighter, a little bit less cheek, so really both sides have been moved in. The nose also is not the long nose, so this is changing the look of this particular person. Right here, the face is too wide and fat in proportion to the features that we have. We still have the long nose, but it's too much jawed hair, too much fullness. Even if Walt gained 75 pounds, I don't think that would be him. More than that is still Walt. Here's a pretty good drawing of Walt, not bad. And there's the original that we had in our intro video. So we're going to give everybody and Walt another sticker of merit. Thank you for joining me today. This is Arthur with Arthur's America. Let's go take the land one drawing at a time.